Hey everyone, welcome to the Dalable Podcast, episode 76. This week we will be discussing how bad Indiana Jones is bombing in the critics. Same thing with Little Mermaid, as well as, the passing of Tina Turner and Ray Stevenson, as well as we're going to be doing our review of Radiant Black, the first volume. So let's get into it, guys.
All right.
But
Let's start with Ray Stevenson.
Talk about
was
unexpected.
Yes.
very,
And there were so many projects tooling up and he was in the middle of that are now going to have to take a deep breath and try to figure out what they're going to do. I can't believe he's gone.
did they actually officially come out with what happened?
No,
Not yet. They haven't yet.
It's just when I saw that, I immediately thought of Punisher Warzone. I mean, he's done a lot of great roles and stuff like that, but for me, Punisher Warzone was the movie that I really most attracted to on it, because they as far as I'm concerned, outside of the TV stuff, that was really the closest to what Punisher should be. And and I keep going back to my favorite scene is where he's got the law rocket and the guys are doing the parkour and going across from rooftop to rooftop.
Rooftop, yeah.
And you got the guy who's all spread akimbo there, mid stride, going between the buildings, and he shoots him with the law rocket and explodes him up. One of my favorite death scenes ever in a movie.
I love that is my favorite Punisher, but I gotta say I also love I love the original Dolph. I was gonna say Thomas Jane, but the Dolph Lundgren has got to be recognized. It was good for the time.
Yes.
But Thomas Jane's was fantastic, but he wasn't the Punisher. That could have been just anybody.
Yeah.
But the fact that Thomas Jane and the guy who plays the Punisher on the Netflix and is now moving over into the Daredevil, Blumenthal, they work together. I watched them at a gun not a gun show.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
A
range.
Range, and they were training together, and it was just the fact that Thomas Jane just showed up, was like, "Hey man, what you doing?" And they're friends, and so they challenged each other. I was like, man, could we not get them together in this series? Give Thomas Jane some other character from Punisher.
No. If Marvel's doing multiverse stuff, there's two Punishers.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's going to be in the Daredevil part yet. I think they're building up the street level crime and that kind of stuff first. But
one can hope.
Yeah, one could. But, with Ray Stevens, one of my favorite roles for him was as Firefly.
Okay.
The G.I. Joe, the second one. Yeah.
And it just sucks that, unfortunately, that movie fell into the trope of let's kill all the villains, so they can't come back for another film. And it's like he was one of the victims that died. So, but I was really looking forward to what his role in Star Wars with Ahsoka.
He's done so many other types of roles, but I loved him as Volstagg from Thor.
Yes.
And when they killed him off with, I believe it was in Ragnarok, or no, the one after Ragnarok. But no, it was Ragnarok.
It was Ragnarok.
They were killed by Hela. Yeah. And I was like, we're not going to get the Warriors 3. Really, I really wanted a segment where the Warriors 3 are going off and doing something. I wanted that so badly. And it's kind of like that Star Wars thing where you want to see the people reunited on screen. And now we're not going to get it unless it's in a multiverse. But he's gone now. So that opportunity is never going to be there anymore.
Right.
Well, and you got to imagine what that's going to change for what Favreau and them have for, and Filoni.
He was supposed to be, what's his name? A version of George Sabath, yeah. So we'll see.
Oh, you could have whatever goes on with him in this season, and then play up on the clone part. That he gets cloned. He doesn't look quite as him. They could get someone very similar, and then that's where he goes crazy. Like, because we know George Sabathka is crazy in the book because of the fact he was a
Because
clone.
of the clone, he was a clone.
Yeah.
You know what? And just bring Jeff Bridges in. Just Jeff Bridges fixes everything. I want to see.
He'd be like, "Hey, man,
Yeah,
As
he's
long
going
as-
into
Dark
remission.
Side is cool, bro."
as long as we've got him, let's use him. Because
Mhm.
man, if anything this week has taught us, you never know.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
they announced that his tumor is like really shrunken down, so he's going toward
Yeah.
remission, which is a great thing. So yeah, because now I'm looking at all these pictures of all these celebrities, and some of them are looking little, And if
Oh.
we're going to lose a Ray Stevenson in his 50s, and Harrison Ford is
Yeah.
stuff at his 80s, and he's looking a little, he's looking a little worn. And I'm like, yeah, let's trade in bingo cards here because this is not going well.
Well, it
What
was
is?
funny. Oh, go ahead, Dad. I'll tell
I was
you.
just gonna say. I mean, I don't know if y'all guys realize that Dolph Lundgren has been fighting cancer for 8 years,
No, I didn't know.
and so it's kind of become aggressively back again. And
Did it come out that it was did he announce that it was terminal, or just he finally announced that he's fighting it? I forget
he
which
just
it was.
it finally announced that he's kept it secret. He didn't want it in the the tabloids. He didn't want people talking about it. He's and that we've always known that Lundgren, the character he plays, is different than the man. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that everybody points out, right, is that he's got, like genius level intellect, right? He's got like a master's in all sorts of, isn't he like a rocket scientist? Like literally
He
a
is
rocket-
technically, literally, he has an engineering degree, a master's in engineering, and several other degrees. And I think he's got 160 or 180 IQ. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, man, put him in charge of something.
Wow.
What
No,
I
he's-
want is I want him to be King Randor in the.
If they do a He-Man movie, I would love to see him play King Randor.
Yeah.
Well, as long as they make He-Man's mom a human astronaut, let's get that back in there.
And then you get Meg Foster, she's still around, and
Yeah, she just had a birthday. Like she's like 67, but she still looks great.
Mhm. Well, you know who doesn't look great?
Wow, tell us.
Where's this segue going?
Meg Ryan.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
oh.
there's some people who, and they should just stop getting cosmetic surgery because it's not helping.
Yeah.
Me and Ryan were talking about that. He goes, because there's a picture of her with Michael J. Fox, and it's like,
Oh, I saw that, and I'm
it's
like,
scary. I'm like, oh my God, what did she do? And there's like, she's only 61. Dad, she's 2 years older than you are, and she looks horrible.
That's because I haven't had no plastic surgery. I didn't decide to try to look like Mars Attacks. I didn't want my face stretched so back, like from Star Trek movie.
Oh yeah, with the Queen Borg.
But no. There was another one where they went to a insurrection, and they were on a planet where the parents were younger, but the kids had left because they rebelled and wanted to get away. But they were now older than the parents, so they were getting cosmetic surgery. I'll think cosmetic surgery. And you might as well have put a crank on the back of their head so they just kept turning it and it would just stretch the hair.
And it would have been like, is this better?
yeah, Beetlejuice.
I mean, not everybody can age gracefully, right? And not everybody tries to age gracefully.
I think you should accept.
Madonna.
I think you should accept who you are. The problem is we're talking Hollywood, and Hollywood turns its back on its older actors for a while. When a child actor goes to the adult actor, there's a period where they're shunned, and that's where they have problems. Same thing happens with the older actors when they go from being the leading man to usually a villain for a while, and then they get old enough to be that gentleman, the father
Robert
figure,
Redford.
or so
Yeah,
I can
I mean-
understand the pressures, but still.
Yeah, then that circles back around to Harrison Ford, because even though Thunderbolts is on hiatus because of the writer's strike, he's supposed to play
Thunderbolt Ross
Yeah.
and the President and Red Hulk, but he'll be doing the voice for Red
Yeah,
Hulk.
right.
Yeah. He
Well-
hopefully they might do him some mocap for some stuff, but hopefully it's not.
You know, if you listen to how Harrison Ford talks now, he talks like a grumpy old man who's been smoking cigarettes for his whole life. I don't want to hear the Red Hulk go, "I'm gonna kick your ass, Hulk." You know, I want to see, you know, get what's his name, the guy who played the Kurgan back. What is his name? The actor from Buckaroo Banzai. He's been
Oh man, I just
everything from
Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
Get him back because that dude, no matter how old he gets, he still sounds badass. So that man has a whole future in doing voiceover work. You know,
He's been doing voiceover.
I've been doing it. Yeah.
Because
But
what
that
he
is-
wasn't he Luthor for the entirety of the
He-
Superman?
He was Luthor in some of the Justice League.
But he
Well,
was
Unlimited-
Superman all the way through all the cartoon of Superman.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
he played him right up through. Was it International? Was that the last of the series or Unlimited? Justice League
Unlimited.
Unlimited. Because I just watched those again. I was clipping through Max and I went over it, and it was the episode where Superman got the plant on him. Mongol had invaded the
The man who has everything.
yes. But just seeing that scene with him talking to his son was like boom, that punch in the chest I got the first time I watched it. And I had to watch them all. You know, and just the whole thing with the question when he was taken by Cadmus and Waller, and man, that was such a well-written series.
And it got replaced by Naruto and Bobobo on Cartoon Network.
Cartoon
Thanks, anime.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Oh, jeez.
No,
and
not
it still stands up today.
It was literally called Bobobo.
Bo, yeah. And it was the
dude
guy with
big
the
yellow
pump.
afro,
yeah,
and he would
pump.
fight with his nose hairs.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I distinctly remember that I sat down and like, all right, because anime had been slowly filtering into the Cartoon Network stuff, the DC and all that stuff had been slowly being pushed out. And I was like, all right, Unlimited's going, they're doing all this awesome stuff. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, we're getting to a finale. I was like, wait, what? And then that wraps up and gets moved out. And then in marches fucking Naruto and Bo. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like Naruto, I get, but what is this guy? Who thought this was a good idea to play? What is going on? And I quit.
Well, look what they did to Cartoon Network, man. All those shows.
Yeah.
Just let's see how far we can take them and stretch them and get extreme with them. And I'm like, what the, and
Hey, but Rick and Morty's the best. I mean, come on.
Rick and Morty is good, but I'm afraid where Rick and Morty's going to go. So,
Right, true. So,
well, Adult Swim always went nuts, right? That was their brand. That's what they did. But
we can talk about the fact that there was a lady that just recently passed that did age very well, and that was Tina Turner.
Yeah.
I had to listen the minute it popped up. I started listening to her, and I listened to her the entire day. I'd planned to watch some of her movies that she was in. I was like, nope, I just want to hear the music because that's what I remembered, and that's how I want to remember her.
Yeah.
The nostalgia, of the music. Yep.
Legend.
At least with some people who passed, they pass naturally. I believe hers wasn't of any complications, was it?
She had a long illness. That's all they've said.
That's all they said.
And Cher was hanging out with her the past few weeks, going up to her at the end.
Do you realize how many great ladies of music we've lost?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Staggering.
God. And there's nobody there coming up behind them as far as their class. To me, I mean, there's a lot of popular singers, but they just don't have. We don't have
some
those people anymore.
But not. I mean, what? I guess Adele would be the closest in a way.
I like
Maybe
Adele.
Lady Gaga under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
Under the right circumstances.
I mean,
I
look
think
at-
Gaga wants to follow with the
Barbara Streisand.
Barbara Streisand and
She's looking weird too.
what's her name? Madonna's passed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah, that's another one that's looking pretty weird. That's
Yeah. And Celine
That's like
Dion.
it's the freaks of Escape from LA, with
It's
Bruce
the
Campbell, the cosmetic surgeon.
it's their vanity overrunning their common sense. I'm
Right.
just gonna put it out there. Um,
Well, and it's sad because you're just like, how do you, I mean, you don't even recognize them anymore. They're like even just caricatures of their future. I mean, their past selves. So,
And another thing about Tina Turner, I found some recent pictures of her because I was like, okay, maybe there were signs of that along the way. There was stuff from just, I don't know, a few months ago, and she looked great.
great, she looked
She
great.
she never had any work done, and she was aging gracefully, and she looked great. And so I'm like, well, what happened to her then? I'm waiting for more information because
I mean,
it was one of those
Tom
things.
for everybody. He's undefeated so far. So I mean,
well,
it's
that we know of, because remember, if you beat death, you become death yourself, and then you got to go on. So,
Yeah.
but I think to become death, you have to have an irrational love of kittens or something like that.
I don't know about that because there was a guy who accidentally shot Death who walked into his room and scared him, and he ended up having to become Death. It was pretty messed up.
I don't know. I mean, if Death does something like hurt his ankle and ends up on somebody's couch, like Peter, then
well, I mean, it's going to happen. He's all bone, right?
Yeah.
He just
Well, my favorite, there was an old cartoon that a buddy of mine did of Death, and it's this guy, and he wakes up, and Death goes, "Well, it's time," and he's like, "Wait a minute, you mean this is all I get?" And he's like a young guy, and he's like, "Yeah, we got to go," and he talks about I missed out on, and the whole thing is just this long build up thing of him talking to Death, and then the punchline was at the end where Death goes, "Okay, bend over." And the guy goes, "What?" He goes, "Bend over." And the desk got this big old tube and monstrous looking head on it. And he goes, "What are you going to do with that?" Well, he goes, "I'm going to shove it up your ass." And he goes, "Wait a minute. What is this?" He goes, "Son, didn't you know that death is a pain in the ass?" And that's where he left it. And man, that is the best version of death. Except I don't want to meet him. I don't want to meet that death. No.
unless the Monty Python death.
Mr. Grimm, something about the reaping.
He's here about the reaping. Or he's like, could be a Bubba Hotep. He sucks your soul through your.
Well, no, that's mummies, right? That's a little different.
But the only different. But he was a mummy of death, right? Wasn't he?
No, he's just a mummy. He's just a cursed mummy.
Or you can
And
be
he
like
kept himself alive by eating souls.
Yeah,
Billy and Mandy, having death as your friend.
good old Grim.
With a Jamaican accent. Man, I love that. That's the death I want to meet. They Melvined me.
Or the one from Bill and Ted. Who doesn't want to hang out with was it William Sattler? Or what is it?
I think that's his name. The guy who can play any character.
Oh, Jeff Bridges.
Oh yeah. Which reminds me, so Ryan, no, it was Hector. Hector said that he thought your name was Flynn, and I made a joke about the fact that it's like, look, my dad does look like Jeff Bridges right now, and that's probably why you think that, because of Tron Legacy.
I would take that job as Flynn.
Hey man,
Then I would make a game, and I would make a game where you can build outrageous ships that fire weapons and fly, or you can make a unicycle that's like 20 feet, high. That would be great. That would be the new Tron.
so
I don't know if it's Tron, but yeah.
Drax
it'd be-
Limo light cycle.
okay, now you've given me the inspiration to make a light cycle somehow in Tears of the King.
Disney is building a light cycle attraction, and it is a roller coaster ride. But yet it's being built in several parks all over the world, and you race the people at the other parks. And when you set in it like this, but it wraps around your leg and holds you in place. There's a strap, and you look and feel like you're in that light cycle, but you're on a roller coaster next to somebody else on a bike.
Yeah. It's like the Avatar ride, sort of.
Yes,
where they,
kind of.
yeah.
I was like, man, where was that when I was young enough to enjoy it?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, we had BattleTech, Dad.
Well, we had BattleTech. We had Space Mountain, which was similar to it, you know. I always loved the tube ride where you're going through all the tubes, and it reminded me of the opening sequence for Running Man, where Arnold gets shot through those tubes, because that's exactly what it was like.
Mhm. Hey, Killian. But it'd be awesome to have like some video game arcades like that back in the day. We never got a Battlestar Galactica where you could fly around in a Viper and take out Cylons. And
I don't even know why you didn't, because they had, like, you could go to any arcade and they had a ship that you would climb in, and it had hydraulics, so when it would move you around and do all kinds of stuff.
Space
Why
Harrier
didn't I'm guessing it has a lot to do with rights.
licensing, probably, yeah.
Licensing.
Because we did get that. Eventually, we got unfortunately, it's a rail shooter, the Star Wars one that you kind of climb into, and it just has those moments from different parts in the movies and stuff. So you can play the Falcon or the X-Wing or Y-Wing, the speeder bike.
That was a good game, and it had the lightsaber duel that you could do.
There was that one too, but there's the one that was recent where it had the big panoramic screen.
Oh, that was the one you climbed in and set in
Yeah.
and shut the door. You'd be playing, and some little kid would open the door and go, "Hey,
what's
hey,
going
you're gonna knock your head off. This thing moves. Oop, I've got a child's head in my lap. I don't want to play anymore." Yeah, I can't believe that happened. It happened to me like twice. These two kids popped their head in, and the thing's going, and I was like, "Where are your parents?" That was at Super Track, because they had it in the. It was one of the last time. One of the last times we went to Super Track, they had before they tore it all down. There was a Star Wars game in the center of it.
Well, yeah, that was the one where you actually did the lightsaber duels and all that stuff.
And you did the fighting against the ATST and all the other ones. Yeah. And then the other one is at what's the one that becomes a bar at Dave and Buster's, that becomes a bar after 10 o'clock. They have the other one that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I remember first playing that at a movie theater that had it, and then it was pretty cool when I saw it at Dave and Buster's, and Main Event had it at one of them. But
I think Main Event is a great place, but it doesn't always have the newest games in there,
No.
One of the games that me and Logan enjoyed playing was they had, like the drums from the Asian islands where you play against each other. They had that on either side, and you're supposed to meet every one of the beats, and then whoever does it wins. But most of the stuff they had were like the fishing game, the one where you could harpoon the fish, and a bunch of the coin-based games where you're trying to
never any fighters. Never any fighters. Considering we got like Street Fighter 6 coming out. Well, this episode will probably be after Street Fighter 6, and hopefully we've enjoyed it. But as of us recording it right now, it's sad that I can't go to an arcade to play it. I have to play it at home. I have to wait for the download and install, the updates, the day one, all that stuff. I just want to put a quarter in and be able to play the game.
What was sad about that is the very one of the last arcades I walked into. I was walking through and I looked over and I was like, "Oh, they've got Injustice in here. That's pretty cool." It was just the first Injustice, but it was like the only fighting game they had in there. So I was like, "All right, let me go try and play this thing." And I went to go start it, and it spat out some cards at me. And I was like, "What the hell are these?" And then I started reading the instructions, and it spits out these little cards, and those are the characters that you play. So it's random what character you get to play, and it's random what character and what strength they are. And then you insert the card in there and you play through it. You're supposed to be able to get better cards as you go along, maybe, right? But it wasn't even a true fighter. It was like a 3-button little paper, rock, scissors nonsense thing. I hated it. It was terrible. It was like, why would you put an Injustice machine in here that plays nothing like the actual game? This is crap, guys. Killing me. Well, why? Who thought this was a good idea?
My niece wants to go for our birthday to an arcade that's up here, and it has like a photon type game, laser tag type game. And I'm like, honey, Papa walks with a cane now. You don't move very well. This is not going to work out well for me. She goes, well, you can protect the base. Okay.
Yeah. You can be the engineer that like tries to fix the artillery that's being fired at the enemy.
See, what well, I mean, that's all nice to think about, but what you'll actually turn into is that one little kid will hide like in a spot behind you,
Spot behind me and constantly shoot
and
me.
he'll pop around the corner and shoot you once and then duck back. And then he'll just rack up points by just doing that the entire
And then
game.
every time he shoots you, you lose the ability to fire back for so long. Yeah.
So you'll be sitting there like, what the heck is going on? What? And that little kid's just gonna be in the corner laughing his ass off.
Yep.
Well,
Man,
remember, there's Cidercade down here, so that's one I want to take you to at some point when you're down. They got arcades and pinball and everything else.
I miss the old shooting games, man. The two cop ones. Then
Time
there
Crisis.
was no, not Time Crisis. I love the Time Crisis. No, the ones where you stand and there's a bar, and so you have to
You're
duck
talking about
and
Police
move.
911, yeah.
Police 911. There was two of them. Man, I love that game. I played that thing for hours. Man, I couldn't do that now. Oh, my hip, bam. Okay, I'm dead. That ain't gonna work that well. That's when I want the rocket that Colin was talking about earlier. Who needs a gun?
Well, that's what it is. Once you get to the point where you
right
unlock the infinite ammo rocket launcher in Resident Evil 4, and you can just walk around and just blow shit up. Oh,
Now-
look, there's a chainsaw man.
Well,
Oh,
if
look.
you
There's a tyrant.
so okay, off tangent for a minute. Elon Musk now announced that Wetworks has been approved for human trials. That means they're going to be hooking chips that will allow humans to manipulate computers just by thought, and it will also help people with amputees who have robotic arms and things like that. And there's another company working on synthetic limbs because they've decided that nothing is better than a metallic structure or framework with synthetic muscles to help move it instead of actuators and other things. I'm like, oh man, I can really see where this can go in, but I can really see where this can go really, really badly if you're not.
Yeah, and then there's that company who did the spinal implants.
Mm-hmm.
Got that one guy walking. Did you see that?
So all of this is really great, but it also means that if they can download your consciousness, and it would be a reasonably facsimile of you, if you died, you could be put into a robot body. Okay, but it's really not me. I'm dead. I'm the guy who fell around the table. This is just a version of me. And now they're also talking about being able to put you in simulations, games. I was like, oh, I could see that. That might be nice.
Well,
but don't make me like I am now. Put me back at my prime and in much better health. Give me some muscles.
Muscles.
That would be cool.
Well, considering the fact that like you'd have to dump a chunk of long-term memory, to be a carrier.
No, your mind is living in a crystalline database, which holds more information than any kind of drive we could ever come up with.
Yeah, as long as we don't have a solar flare.
I just don't want some butthead teenager going, hey, I'm going to do, and I walk into the game and I'm like, I'm me.
I mean,
what kind of crap is this?
Will forever be a thing.
Yeah. Let's get back to Tears of the Kingdom. How are you enjoying it, David?
I mean, I know you talked about how you weren't a big fan of Breath of the Wild. I enjoyed Breath of the Wild. This feels like a continuation of that, right? It's a sequel. It's a growth from the mechanics of that. I like a lot of the mechanics they put in this. A lot of the problem solving and puzzles and the shrines are really interesting. And because of the way that the nature of what they've added into it, you can come up with some really, really inventive ways to figure a lot of this stuff out. So like that side of it is great. I'm enjoying the story. I'm curious where it's going. But I was thinking about it, and I was talking to my son about some of the stuff in Zelda because we were talking about we haven't got to the end, right? And we haven't been reading up on spoilers. So we've been kind of talking about where things are going, like how things could possibly unfold. And I started thinking about it more, and I realized that between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the Triforce doesn't exist, right? It doesn't. We
Or it
see in
doesn't
this.
anymore. It doesn't any. If it did, it doesn't any.
No, because I mean it can't. We've seen this version of Ganon and where he gets his power, and it has nothing to do with the Triforce, right? Absolutely nothing to do with it. So on top of that, because of the mechanics of the way they handle weapons in this game, man, the Master Sword, it just doesn't feel. It doesn't have that oomph to it, right? I mean, I get that the reason why they set all this up is because they want me to use the fuse ability. They want me to utilize all these different weapons, and those are cool. And some of the weapons that you can create, especially whenever you start adding in like the Zonai devices and all that stuff to it, is really neat. But like, man, I go and I did the quest to get the Master Sword, and that was a cool little moment. But then I immediately go out and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably never going to use it because I got better weapons. And I don't know, a little bit of the magic for some of the stuff that was
Little
has
bit,
been kind of
it
bled
it's
out of
really deviated. It's like it's not the same game anymore. Granted, okay, you want to give the audience something new. That's okay, but there's some legacy here. Build on it and keep those elements that what keep people coming. Because once they're gonna deviate too far, it's no longer gonna be
Well,
a Link game. It's not gonna be a Zelda game.
they've deviated a lot. The thing is that like this game could have been even better had they focused on like they explain the whole reason why your stuff breaks is because of the gloom and what's going on in the world. And so do you think what David said, with the Master Sword, which is supposed to be the end all be all sword that you can get to defeat the evil, would have durability, to have like this, special ability that makes it to where it doesn't break. But
right, because like in Breath of the Wild, whenever you find out that it can depower as you use it, the excuse you can make in your head, and me and my brother talked about it, the excuse you make in your head is, oh well, it's not back to full strength yet, right?
correct.
It's not back to what it was. In this game, not only is it back to what it was, but technically by the time you re-get it, it's supposed to be even more powerful than it was before. And yet as I use it, it's like, oh hey, your Master Sword's about to wear out. I'm like, it's gonna wear out? How? What? No. Why would you do this? So like that aspect of it, like I said, that some of the story elements to it, I miss from the old Zelda series, but that's not to say the story for this has been bad or the characters have been bad. And I mean, you go on the internet at all, you go to YouTube, and man, there are some people that are doing some really cool and interesting stuff in this game.
Right. But what they're doing is really not Zelda. They're okay, from what we just watched today, that completely changed this game. It would be like, you know what? Let's add Ash's weapon to Mario. We'll let Mario be able to put a chainsaw in his hand, walk around with a 4-barreled shotgun, and just shoot his enemies. You know, that's
Well,
kind of the feel that I get from
to your
watching what
point-
people are doing.
To your point, when they did Mario Odyssey, that still felt like a good evolution for what we know as Mario. This Zelda game, and then not Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom is for me, in my opinion, is much better because it has so much more story. It has some really good like world building elements into it. But like with Breath of the Wild, I felt it was just a glorified game engine. You have this, hey, here's a sandbox, go play in it. We've hidden 10 seconds of story for like, here and there if you want to find it. And then you go fight the same boss at every one of the Guardians. And then you fight the same boss for the end boss. There was nothing mind blowing about that game. And then you have to worry about, oh man, my weapons are going to break. Oh, the Master Sword is an imitation of what it could be and what it should be.
But
You
you know
didn't
what they
even
did justice to? You know what they did justice to was the Hylian shield, because man, that thing could tank some shots.
well,
Holy
yeah,
crap.
well, it could take.
That thing was a beast. It was like,
But I
what?
don't
What?
understand.
So it stand up like the Hylian shield, man. The freaking Hylian shields out there, like, oh hey, there's these robots that run around and fire beams that just instant kill you from everywhere. And it's like, yeah, the shield's just like, I got you, dude. I'm gonna
Shield bash.
20 shots dead on and deflect them because I'm awesome. It's like, all right, cool. Now I'm gonna pull out the Master Sword, and the Master Sword's like, I had a cold today. I don't really
You
want
pull it out and it goes, you know. But
It's sad
well,
when-
here's what they should have done was you should have had the Master Sword that had a set power structure, but you could improve upon it. You could find enchantments. You could go and build things and make it a much more powerful weapon. And those enchantments can be broken or damaged, but you never take away from the power of the Master Sword. And
well,
they
you also could have had it to where you go on a quest, you talk to this hard to find blacksmith, you got to go quest like and kill a bunch of Lionels and stuff, and then bring all that stuff back and have them make the perfect Master Sword. And once you do all this stuff, you have this indestructible weapon to go take on Ganon.
Yeah, because
But-
I mean, at the same time, like even as cool as the Master Sword is, there are certain points in the game where you need the functionality of something else, right? Like I need to break down a bunch of blocks to get through this. Make it so the Master Sword, can't shatter walls and crap like that. It's like I get if it can't do that, I understand. But
Well,
some
Well,
of this
if you're
other
going to world build, you don't do it by making things breakable or by taking away from them. World building is adding more. It's never taking away, and that seems like what they did.
I mean, go talk to the Elder Scrolls pre Skyrim on that. I mean, you can do it, but it's nice to be able to repair it, right? Like that.
Right.
That was one of the things that made me sad about Breath of the Wild. I was hoping they were going to do a little bit something different in this. Was the ability to go like once I got a cool sword, I never used it. I like once I got a house, I put it on the mantelpieces. Like that's a great sword.
yeah, because I don't want to break it.
Use it because, but I like it sitting up there because if I go use it, it's going to shatter and I'm never going to see it again. And that kind of makes me sad. Unless I go find some random black market dealer in the middle of nowhere that I got to give a mountain of rupees to get, another facsimile of it. Or I got to go and, gather up a bunch of materials to recraft one of the champion's weapons, right? That was really the only way that you could consistently have a weapon set throughout the game without just constantly scavenging stuff. So, I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't break my immersion or my ability to enjoy the game. I'm still really enjoying it. Like I said, I've really enjoyed a lot of the puzzles. Like I was talking to my brother today about it. He just randomly messaged me and said, "Hey, what are your favorite abilities in this game?" And I told him Ascension and Reverse. I love those two abilities. Like just
Those break the game. They break the game.
dude, they're so good. They're so good. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this sky tower. It's like, oh, hey, you got to climb this. And I'm like, oh, I got to climb it, really? And then I look over. It's like, oh, wait, there's a rock falling from, above. I'm just going to go hop on that, reverse it into the sky, and then glide over and land on top of the tower. It's like little things like that make the world and interacting with it so much fun to mess with and do. It's great.
I like the fact that like when it explains how you become depowered, like you start maxed out like you did at the end of the game, Breath of the Wild, and then it explains how, oh yeah, you went back down to 3 hearts because of, waking up Ganon.
They did the
before, but
they did the classic Metroid bit, right? Where it's like,
yes, exactly.
Got all of her gadgets, but ipso facto bullshito. Now she doesn't.
It's fucking here we go. I wish that one of the cool mechanics was they gave us a recipe book. Well, not really a recipe book. You just click on the item. If you've made something with it, it stores what the recipe is. So you can just click on the item, redo the recipe, and all the items will pop in your hand and you can cook it. But why couldn't you do that with like your armor and weapons. Like you go and find something very similar. You could fuse them together without having to do the let's put a sword on top of a sword and we have double the power. And I'm like, no, it's not He-Man with Skeletor and He-Man's sword together, and it makes the original sword, because it's not like that. It's like, oh yeah, one end of the sword's here, and it's like, oh wait, I got a spear. But
I mean, having the ability to do that is cool, but at the same time, man, as I was going through one of these quests and I was going through it and I was using my bows a lot, and I started getting down. I was realizing, I'm like, man, I'm down to like 2 bows now, and
I
these are
ran out of bows.
my really good bows. Shit, where did I find these? Can
Bows
I find them again? Damn it! How am I gonna get back there? Where? And then you got to go on the guides and be like, all right, where the hell do you find this bow? And I hope it respawned, right? I mean, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I don't know. It's the one main issue I have with the game. Everything else, I'm really digging. I'm really enjoying. Oh,
I mean,
except
at
except
least
for
with
freaking dragon parts. I hate
okay,
that right
at least with Fallout, when the durability of my gun breaks or something, I could go to somebody and fix it, or I had the skill that I learned to fix
You
it.
get a skill set that you can use to
Um,
repair or do something. You know,
don't get me wrong, I enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. It's really good. It's hooked me in. I'm really there for the story. It's really cool getting to actually see the world lived in, not like, oh, there's these small towns that have a small amount of people because everyone was almost wiped out by Skynet. It's like,
now. Yeah, and Skynet's still active and will
yeah,
kill.
yeah. Um, but it's I don't know. There's moments where it's like I feel that a lot of this is just padded to make the game bigger. You know, I'm glad that there's dungeons in the game, but it seems like they're just doing at the moment there's only 4 that I know of for the 4 parts that pop up. Unless there's more that come about, it's just the same rinse and repeat from the last game. There's no like, oh, we heard some complaints and we're gonna maybe fix a few of those things, and then here you go. And instead of like innovating, changing, because like I don't want the next Zelda game after this one to be the third in this Breath of the Wild trilogy.
so there's Breath of the Wild. What is this one called? Tears of the.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Next one will be the armpit stank of Link or of Ganon.
You know what?
All of this is body parts. The title.
Depending on how far along you are in the story,
Handshakes of Doom.
there's this story of this game is doing some very interesting things, and I know that they're going to get undone and they're going to get fixed, and magical things are going to happen, that happy endings are going to go on. But I think it would be pretty crazy of Nintendo if this game ended with Link's magical arm disappearing and it just being like him, one armed, living this like life, and certain other things not being fixed as well.
Yeah, I would love the whole Gohan, future Gohan thing, right? He's still going to go take on the androids with his one arm and stuff and go Super Saiyan and get killed.
No, it's more of like, job's done, and now he's just going to be like grizzled old one-armed Link out in the woods somewhere, right? Like,
meanwhile, Rocket's got his arm.
Yeah.
I doubt what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that certain things are going to get fixed, and I'm sure that Link's magical arm will magically turn into his arm or something like that. But yeah, I hope they do wrap this up and we go on to whatever the next random Zelda timeline that we fall into in the next one.
Because we don't actually know where this one fits into the timeline at all.
Maybe
they
should hire storytellers first. Back in the day when you were going to do a game, you hired a storyteller who came up with this great story. Then you figured out what the mechanics were going to be to do that. This is, we got all this great mechanics. Well, you know what? We're going to tell this mediocre story, but we're going to give them an open world. You can go and do anything. You can build anything you want. Well, that's what
Minecraft's for.
Minecraft is for, I want the adventure.
I wonder how much of this is being influenced by, the Western open world type games. Because I mean, you saw it happen with games like Dark Souls, right? That Japan started putting out, where there's a story there if you want to go find it, or you can just play the game and
Yeah.
you don't have to know all the cool history and backstory and why this guy is hanging out with this chick and she's like in the puddle of this mire crying or whatever. Like, you can either care about it, but the way that you care about it is you got to go hunt down a bunch of random items and read their descriptions and talk to certain NPCs and, in your mind, piece it all together. And if you're able to do that, it's a really cool and interesting, like, intricate background and story and all this nonsense. Or you can just play through the game and you never get any of that, right? It's this instead of putting you kind of on rails and sending you through cutscenes, it's just here's the world, go experience it, and you might find the full story, you might find part of the story. I mean, it's almost mimicking life in a little bit of way, right? Where you might find everything, you might get to see the full picture, or you're just going to see whatever little bitty slice that you find as you're going through it. So it's a different type of game to go play in, right? I mean, think about the Adventure of Link and how weird and different that was compared to all the rest of the Zelda games that they've come out with, right? If you want to talk about really weird versions of Zelda. So this is just one of those. We've had
One
two of
thing-
them,
The
but
one thing that it works better with it having more of an RPG mechanic. Like, you get stronger going and fighting these things over and over again. I feel like it's like a single player MMO, but but it's action oriented. There's no real like progression. It doesn't feel enough like The Legend of Zelda to me anymore.
yeah, because it's equipment based now.
Yeah, instead of like, oh, well, I went and got well, even back then it was equipment based. I went and did this temple, I got the item, and then I could go maybe on a different path instead of following the narrow structure of, oh, I need to go to this temple. I could go maybe tackle another temple. It's I don't know. I feel like padding the game like they're doing it. I think that once I get to the point where I've had my fill, I'm just gonna go beat Ganon and I'm be done with it. I have other games that I got, like I still haven't started. I did start a little bit of Jedi Survivor. I got Street Fighter coming out next week. There's still Metroid Prime I need to go through again, for the first time with the new.
You want to talk about knocking out something from your backlog this week, because this, Zelda came out, but my son, he had half days and he had like one final a day, and then all the rest of the day was a bunch of nothing. So he was taking the Switch with him to school, and so he was making all his progress on that. And meanwhile, I realized I still hadn't beat God of War, so I had backtracked all the way to God of War. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit down and beat this so I can take it off my PS5 and be done with it.
It's sad because I think one of the things that turned me off about the game, and it's not the game's fault, is the fact that like I pre-ordered this game in advance, and I didn't even get it until like Friday. For that Friday came, it wasn't here. Saturday, Sunday wasn't here. Monday it wasn't here. Came on Tuesday. So it's like I was hyped to play this game on launch day, but it's like Best Buy didn't want to decide to ship it out in enough time that I should get it on release date. This is a
That's
trend.
because they're afraid that the mail might function like it should, and you'll get
Yeah.
it early, and then all of a
Wait,
sudden that starts trouble.
Where do they live? It's like, what part of the state or the country that they live in, that where the mail actually functions like it's supposed to? I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way here in Texas.
No, because in Texas, it could land 2 miles from you, but
And it's
it's going to
inbound.
get shipped to another city. Then it's going to make its way back to closer to you, like within 20 miles. Then it's going to go all the way 40 miles away from you. Then it's going to come back to another hub, and then you're going to look at it's out for delivery for 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it. I enjoy the story so far. I haven't really done a whole lot of the quests. Most of my stuff has just been exploring, seeing what I could find. learning the new mechanics. I've been having fun making stuff. Like, there was one point where I was doing a temple where you had like this boat platform, and I put like two. I put one of the fans in the front and like three on the back, and I made like Luke's land speeder, so it was hovering over the sand, and it was pretty awesome. That's really cool being able to make something like that. But I don't know. I just miss the old format, honestly. I'd rather be playing almost a traditional Zelda game. Give me like Twilight Princess, whatever. Not him as the dog, but with that kind of
And I loved the what was the one before Majora's Mask?
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time. That was my favorite of the Link games. And then Majora's Mask came out, and that game pissed me off so much that at one point I thought about throwing it across the room and just smashing it, but I was like, I paid money for it. And eventually I just kind of put it over onto my shelf, and then it disappeared. So I don't know who took it, but I hope they choked on it. But because I was never going to finish it. I hated it. I was like, oh no, we could have done something better than this. I
Groundhog
understand.
Day. I can't even play Bill Murray. I mean, to make this game a little funny, but
God, man, Groundhog's Day. I just think that sometimes in their quest to make them innovative, they get away from what the core is of that. And you're going to find a new audience, but you're going to lose the old audience. They should try to find a way to keep both elements there, so you can make long-term fans happy and you can attract the new fans. And they can go off and play how they want to play, and you go off and play how you want to play. That's what we were talking about, earlier, about games where you either have to play as a party to accomplish whatever you're going to do, or those games where you can go off and do your own thing. And I love open world games, trust me, and I will play every scenario. And then the last thing I do is follow the path to complete the game, because I don't want to end the game. I want it to keep going.
I mean, it's when it comes to that side of it, it's kind of like what we were talking about before we started recording, right? Where it's like, why are you patching out glitches from a single player game that has no PvP or online interactability with it? Like, what are you doing, Nintendo? Why are you doing that? Let us who don't have hundreds of hours to dump into this stupid thing the ability to like skip some time, because I'm telling you, man, harvesting those stupid dragons takes so long. It's ridiculous. But in terms of finding a new audience or not, this was also one of the first Switch games that was $70, right? This is the price increase, and it shipped 10 million units. It's already sold 10 million units of this thing. So
and there's your answer to why we have the highest overuse of credit cards in America. Even larger than we've had in the past. It's because, wow, I'm going to go buy this. And then what did they do? They made it where you can get it now and pay later. We'll let you make payments with no interest for a year. Well, I've been playing this. Oh my God, the year's up. Oh man, I'm going to start having to pay interest on this.
And then they took away the ability to be able to beat the game faster and make your money's worth out of it instead of having to know. I don't know, because like I know my buddy I used to work with at my old job. He kept on playing it, going and farming and all this other stuff, and I was like, that's cool. Eventually he did the whole thing where get from the starting area all the way down to Hyrule Castle to go fight Ganon, with the starting equipment. Just picking up what he could inside Hyrule Castle. But it's like, I didn't have time for that. I was like, I beat the game. I enjoyed it, but I had problems with it because like I said, I felt that it was a test bed for the game that we got now, because this is the more polished game. I was and I guess had Final Fantasy 15 not been as bad as it was when it first launched, where it was missing chapters, it wasn't that like very coherent story, and then like when you got to the final area, you don't even get to experience the world with all the new monsters and things that you could have allowed your players to go and explore and do. No, you get in your vehicle and you travel to the Hammerhead, and then you travel to the capital, and then that's your little bitty sandbox, which is smaller than the main map. I mean, I don't know. I'm tired of these like unfinished games. I mean, I want a game that's completed, and that is not they piece it out and make it to where they take away things like, they add durability to your weapons. They make it to where you have to harvest all this stuff, which you normally do in a game anyway, but it's like you have to do it in overabundance. You have to, and it's like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go play an MMO. I know I may not have people that agree with me on this, but I want something more. I expect something more from a Zelda game.
Well, what's crazy is that now they front load them with there's going to be a DLC release because the game's incomplete. That there's going to have to add something, or you know what, we're going to have this standard release, but if you really want everything, you're going to pay extra $159 and get the deluxe
Game of Year edition, or the deluxe version that has all the DLC for free or the extra characters.
Yeah. It's all about making money. It's not about the experience for the game player anymore. How much can we milk them?
I haven't gotten through, like I said, I haven't gotten through all the story of this one yet. It feels, so far, it feels complete to me. It doesn't feel like they're skimping on the story for this particular iteration of it, right? And even with Breath of the Wild, the DLC for it was more, you didn't need it. It gave you a little backstory, right? You got the Master Sword trials if you really wanted to go through those. But I mean, Nintendo is one of the better companies, at least that I've seen, at giving you, hey, here's a really great standalone product that you can go and play. And oh, by the way, here's this extra crap if you want to throw it onto it. Not everything, right? Like Smash Brothers had 3 character passes for it. This go around, but I mean, it's a fighting game. There's over 100 characters. It's nuts, right? So that makes a little bit of sense. So I'll give Nintendo a little bit of the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this until they really try to fleece me. But anyways, yeah.
No, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying this game a lot. You have the things that I didn't like or most people didn't like still in this one. So it's like, I thought you guys would have kind of improved a little bit. I mean, yeah, adding the ability to make anything you want is fantastic. And in solving puzzles, it's like, hey, let's work with Valve and we'll use the Source engine and all the physics for that, because a lot of this stuff feels like Half-Life things that I'm working with, like Half-Life 2. And
I mean, the physics in this feel better than almost every other game. I mean, just the fact that you can go and set something through motions and then tell the game to recreate that again, but in reverse, the exact same way. Like, normal games don't do that and function as smoothly and as nicely as this one has. It's, in terms of its technical prowess, it's a really good and competent physics engine going on in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just generalizing, but how much code do they tell anybody how much more code is in this than was in the last one?
I don't look into those things, so I have no idea. Colin, are you taking a picture of the screen?
I am.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good game. Go pick it up if you got the money, or wait till it's on sale, which is going to be hard considering the fact that this is a mainline Nintendo game and they like to keep their stuff out as long as they can. But it's good. It's, in my opinion, it's not better than previous Zelda games, but it's definitely a lot better than Breath of the Wild for sure. and I'm more intrigued with what's going on in the story than I was with, and it's great not having to deal with the Guardians rocking around, friggin' like one shotting you. Oh, they saw me. Boom, I'm dead.
Stupid tracking laser, man.
Yeah,
Anyways,
telling you, Skynet, bro, Skynet.
all right. So I guess let's get into
So
something that
we've beat Link
Yeah,
into a
yeah,
pulp.
we did this for
So
a while. We want to get into the meat of the episode with consensually, it was the meat of
yeah,
the episode.
with
Good lord,
Soylent.
man.
Well, let's bring up Soylent Black back there.
Soylent Black. Yeah. Radiant Black.
We do Radiant Black.
I love in the book where they make fun of the name.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have to be really confident what you're putting out to make fun of your own name, and I loved. I have to say I loved the dialogue, the human interaction. The one thing that I used to hear when we were producing our own comic was you let the image show everything. We used to get a lot of feedback from writers that would say, you've got too much dialogue, there's too much interaction. Let your pictures tell the story. Well, if I want these people to be human and feel human, and for me to have people getting to know them and like them, world building, they have to talk and they have to sound like they're having a conversation, not direct action dialogue, that just drives the scene. No, that's not how people talk. And that was the one thing I really, really enjoyed with this. I like that the main character is a writer and he's struggling. There's a lot of subtext going on in here that I think probably will pay off much later in the series. I did think it was a little predictable that his buddy would end up with, the thing. I was like, yeah, I could see they were heading there. But I believe that when the villain showed up at the end, and I told Vince this, I bet that that's his buddy. His buddy was told, can you sacrifice everything? Can you sacrifice others? Can you sacrifice yourself to protect what you love? And he was like, no, the ends don't justify the means. His buddy's like, hell yeah. So what better villain or better opponent than the person who would refuse to sacrifice everything against people who are willing to do what needs to be done?
Well,
so
and they set it up. They set it up even before that with the nightmare sequence, right? There's that nightmare where he sees his buddy show up in his nightmare, and so I'm kind of curious how that, like, I've read the first and second volume. I think what Colin and you, Vince, y'all got through volume 3, right?
Not yet. I gotta pick up volume 3. I've only read volume 2. I understand what happens, but just because when you read volume 2, it kind of gives away what's going on a little bit with Nathan. But
and then, man, I love the character. Each character has a story and an arc, and it all ties back to what the guy was originally writing. It's almost like his writings created this universe that they're dealing with right now. I mean, it was just a well-written story, and I believed in the characters. I felt their emotion. I understood, the Power Ranger stuff is a little old for me. The whole color coordinated, I don't need that. They could have just walked around in normal clothes being who they were. Especially as fast as people were figuring out who they were. I was like, okay, man, cops can't figure out who broke into my car, but they can figure out who the damn superhero is in the book within 5 pages.
yeah, that was funny.
It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody.
It is that is true. I mean, I even
unless you're a serial killer and you eat your neighbors, and they don't know who the hell you are for 2 or 5 years, 2 to 4 years.
Yeah. Dennis Rader.
But I like the whole interaction with Nathan and his dad. I like the interaction between Nathan and Marshall. It's very believable, and that's where it goes back to what you said, Dad, about the fact that the the writing in this is very strong.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts about it was like when he was trying to write, like you said, I as being someone who creates something, as YouTube or when we write or draw, having that moment of like not knowing what you want to draw, you could come up with anything, but like, you want to be genuine about it and you want it to be good. So it takes time.
Well, they were trusting the characters to tell their story. They
Yes.
allowed the characters to tell their story instead of pigeonholing them into certain circumstances, There were times I was like hollering at, the main character, like, oh, you're doing something dumb. And that meant I was invested in him. And then I did the same thing against his buddy. I mean, everybody has that buddy. And they appear in so many other stories. Shazam, the young man who has a disability. We've talked about this before. There's always a character who knows everything. Like the Scream guy who understood all the horror tropes. And you start to rely on him. Whereas I wanted to see a little more growth from, is his name Nathan, the main character? Yeah, I want to see him grow, but now he's in a, what, and I don't know how much growing is. That's why I think, because they said there's no brain activity. I think he still exists, and I think his essence is in somewhere else.
Well, we can talk about volume 2 after we do whatever our next podcast is, but
Yeah.
I liked his struggle to become the hero.
Yes.
And the fact that like he was like trying to do the day-to-day, like just helping people when he showed up to that family that had the car trouble and stuff, and he broke the tire iron and stuff, and he's like, well, you know what, I'll just do this, and he flew him to the
where are y'all headed? But I really like the little kid going, do you know what you're doing? Have you ever done this before? That is just great writing. I want to see somebody heckle Superman like that when he fights a villain and he smashes the building. That didn't work out real well. You're going to help rebuild the building and put these people back into their jobs after you leave, because
later, citizen.
I've saved you. I'm leaving now. I'm going to take off before the bill comes. That's why I really like it. It just had a lived in feel.
Well, and this is one of those things where we have a comic here that is very old school in tone, but has, some modern sensibilities, but is not so much that there's no like hidden agenda. It's got a really good message that, we used to get years ago, and we need more comics like this.
And I like imperfect people. Everybody, when you're writing a character, give them a flaw. Give them something to struggle and grow from, instead of making them perfect. That's why I can't stand Mary Jane's. They're perfect from the start, so they have no growth.
Mary Sue's.
And when I say Mary Jane's, I'm not just talking about female character. Mary Jane to me is anybody who is naturally all of a sudden better at everything. And they don't have to learn. They don't have to have a mentor. They don't have to have anything. I just woke up this morning and I know how I can save the world. No. That right there, you have arrogance. So that's a flaw.
I mean, we all know that's why Peter
mistakes. What now?
I mean, I said we all know that's why Peter told Mephisto that he wanted to divorce Mary Jane, because she was just better at him than everything.
Yeah.
She got out of bed, her hair was already set.
Yeah. It's been time combing his hair every day.
He got tired of trying to live up to that. She's hot, she's beautiful. I can't handle this. I'm just a schmuck.
So just so that we can catch you up on the joke that's going on here, the particular trope you're talking about is a Mary Sue.
Yes.
Mary Jane is I prefer Mary Jane.
Oh, okay.
Mary Sue.
Well,
I know what a Mary
Sue. Legalized it.
But I'm gonna keep saying it, Mary Jane, because I want to see how long before somebody says,
Well, that's because, Dad, you want to Mary Jane.
Oh, I want one right now.
You just want someone to knock on your door and say, "Hey,
No,
Tiger."
no. I just want to roll one and light it up, but no, I can't get any more plain than that. But now, you know what? We live in an age where you
That
just
can
go
get you
get
in
a
trouble in certain states, Dad.
you just go get a gummy.
Yeah.
I want a gummy bear.
Yeah, you don't got to deal with all the inhalation and smoke. That's less
Yeah.
cancerous, right?
It's got to be.
I know, yeah, I forget it's Mary Sue. Whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter.
That's fine. No, you shouldn't have admitted to it. You should have played it off. Everybody would have thought, oh man,
Yeah.
he was 4 moves ahead on
I
all
ain't
of us.
afraid of saying I make a mistake, but I didn't make the mistake of when I was writing our book of making our characters just perfect. Everybody in our story had a flaw, and they had a strength and a flaw so that the characters could learn from each other, and Kevin and Nathan played off of each other's strengths. Together they were a better person than separate. And
Wow.
that was kind of what you saw in Radiant Black with the two friends. One was introverted, the other one was outgoing. And when they were together, they brought out the best in each other and the worst, with all the alcohol. But
So, Colin, go ahead, man.
Well, for me, it was like if somebody took the idea of Invincible and made it really enjoyable. Minus the superhero dad, of course. The when I read and watched Invincible, I'm like, okay, this is really cool, but it felt like surfacey type stuff. When I was reading Radiant Black, I'm like, okay, this is a lot more depth. This is what I was hoping to get out of Invincible. And as I was further along, you were talking about modern aspects to it and stuff like that. I was getting little hints of like, okay, I see little like Marvel Cinematic MCU stuff. Like I kept getting like little nods to like Iron Man and Tom Holland Spider-Man and the parallels. And I kept seeing, okay, this is like Peter Parker level weirdness at times or in depth of things like that. So it created a level of familiarity for me as I was reading through it. And then when they got like Vince said they got like to the whole Power Ranger thing, I'm like, oh, okay, that's that for me was like a step backwards, but I understood it because it was an easy way to explain it.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the powers manifest because
they do get
they're like black holes do different things. Like in the book, he says he should have been called Radiant Blue because his energy is blue; it's not black. But his was all about mass and weight and energy, light. Whereas hers was it's all the powers seem to revolve around matter and what you can do with matter.
Right.
Hers was you can change, can't destroy it, but you can change it. You can manipulate and make it become something else.
Or absorb it and use it to.
Yeah.
Well, yes. But when she absorbed it, she used the energy from it, which is breaking down the matter and making small nuclear explosions and using that energy to power yourself. She wouldn't have been able to handle the power that was released by those atoms being taken apart unless she had the power of the black hole within her to help her, because the gravity of a black hole, its mass is what makes it able to absorb everything and not, destroy itself in the process. So I'm looking, okay, so they introduced two more characters at the end of it. What are their powers going to be? Because it's all revolving around science. That was the other thing that when we did the threat, we wanted it to try as closely as possible to revolve around science. So there's, you don't have this open world where you can do anything. There are rules to the world. And I'm looking forward to see those rules more defined, you know, because just the idea of a black hole sitting there, even if it's a mini black hole, if it starts feeding, it's going to grow and it's going to get bigger and it's going to become dangerous, and the fact that you could hold it in your hand means it's more than a mini black hole. There's something else going on there.
Right. That was something else that without being spoilery, as it gets farther along, I got a little bit of the way they were treating it was kind of like another nod to maybe Green Lanternish type stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
could see-
kind of. Yeah.
Because as you know, and those of you who haven't gone on beyond it, it's they really do get into the aspects of each one and how different they are, yet how they intermingle and stuff like that and clash, and they really do well with playing that up and explaining it more. So when you get further on, Vince, you will, some of your questions will get answered. I
Yeah.
will say.
And that's the point. If I can read through it and go, yeah, I can live without it, they didn't accomplish what they set out to do. But if I read it and go, you know what? I'm interested in seeing where this next issue goes and where they go with it, then you've accomplished something.
Right.
That's what you want to do with your readers. You want to spark something in them that makes them want to come back and continue reading the story. There was a lot of them out there. I mean, I got Grayson. I picked up Grayson, the graphic novel where they tried to turn Dick into a super spy. Man, and I hated that book. And I loved the old Nick Fury books from the 70s where it was all about the spy business, the spy craft. This is kind of mimicking that, but it's doing it in a way that I don't like it.
That was horrible.
Yeah. So I won't ever pick up any of the other graphic novels the trades. This is one and done for me. I didn't like it enough to keep following it. Radiant Black is different. And I hate you, David, for adding one more friggin' thing for me to add to a bookshelf.
Welcome. So yeah, I mean, at least the first volume, especially, it's definitely, I think what y'all are getting into is it focuses way more on the interpersonal relationships of the characters, right? Because I mean, they even shorthand a lot of his first battles with supervillains, right? It's just a quick little series of panels where you just see different little people in different little costumes, and eventually you get a more impactful scene with each of those further in the story and in the volumes. You actually meet one of the supervillains. You get a little bit of the history of them, sort of their motivation. But even that, it's not really focused on. The main push isn't trying to really sell you a superhero story necessarily. It's really selling you the story of this person, right? And that's kind of the difference. And maybe that's sort of the difference that some people feel with Invincible, where Invincible is going more for that classic, really old school, I'm just going out there to smash things type story. But then it also started layering in the interpersonal stuff as it went along, right? But starting off, it's just very by the numbers superhero, whereas this starts off very in depth with the characters. And that's, I think, where some of the maturity is felt in it, I guess,
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
no,
clever. It's a clever way to show the passage of time too.
Yeah.
Because you really understand that he didn't just get this power and all of a sudden he's here. There's time passers practicing. There's things going on, and he's learning on the job.
Right. So yeah, and like I said, the way I stumbled on this was my brother, worked. He doesn't work there anymore, but he worked at Bedrock, right? And he found out about this series. He really liked it. He gave it to my son, and we started reading it. I've been really digging it, getting into it. And then just to kind of also add on to all this, right? Part of the draw of this series for some people is the fact that once the first one came out, it kind of blew up, and then it's sort of turned into its own sort of condensed little universe with all these other spin-off characters, right? Like each of the Power Rangers, not quite all of them, but a few of them have their own books. But there's one that you don't meet in this book series that's also within this same universe. Let's see if I can pull this off without dropping it. And that's Rogue Sun.
Rogue Sun, yeah.
But where Radiant Black is more of your sci-fi style hero, right? Where you're dealing with space, robots, superpowers, and all that. Rogue Sun is more in the line of your Justice League Dark, your Constantine. His power and the things that he fights are more magical in nature. They're more monstrous and things. And it's a really good book. It still plays into the same sort of themes as Radiant Black. It's a lot of interpersonal drama. in this particular one, instead of it being about friends, it's actually directly about family and problems with, you know, a dad who wasn't there for one of his kids and then tries to come back into his life later on, and the sort of problems that, you know, trying to pass on a mantle to someone that you haven't met or seen for, you know, the better portion of their life, and what that looks like and what those emotions are and all that. But then on top of it, the things that he fights, the things that he deals with are really good. I've only read the first volume of it. I think there's the second volume out now. I don't know. I from what I look at, it's still continuing, so they're working on volume 3. But if you like Radiant Black and you want a little bit more magic in your world, then go check out Rogue Sun as well. It's, again, same universe, not the same writer, but it's
It's
definitely
very Mike Mignola type.
it's
It
still
looks
on
like
par in
Hellboy.
terms of quality with it, with what this type of story that it's telling.
Everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode. And on top of that, look, if you've made it all the way through this episode, please in the comments below, you know, tell us what you're watching, what you're reading. You know, who would you cast as Billy Zane's character in the Titanic? Let's go for it. But in the meantime, everyone
And
have a great.
tell us what Mary Sue you prefer to smoke. I mean Mary Jane. Or Gumby.
We'll get it right one of these days.
That was perfect.
Peace out, everyone.